there's John Groff.
I saw Serby's name.
Yep.
I'm here. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Serby. How are you, dear?
I'm good.
Can you hit the other one so I can see what other names that we noticed too?
Yeah, other what?
Oh,
the
to
other
the
page.
because I like to see. It's always fun to see.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor. How's it going, Barry? I love your background.
We need more people to turn their cameras on.
I love it.
Let us see you.
Well, the question I think sometimes people have is if they turn on their camera, will they be able to multitask nearly as much? Hey, Paul, how are you? Paul, that cannot be your background. I love it. Because I know you're not a hoarder, my friend.
Oh my God.
All right, I think everybody's in.
Sure. To Kathleen or me.
You
Melissa, you're up, young lady. Everybody, this is Melissa Silverman, who will explain a little bit more, but other than the fact that she's my wonderful partner.
Everybody, welcome to the Exit Planning Institute. I guess that this is the Southern California Exit Planning Institute virtual series. This is our second part of our virtual series since we can't get together and can't have a business owners event this year. We decided to do, we started this, I think, back in May? We started the first part of these series for business owners, trying to help business owners with the times that we're in and what do you do now and thinking about how do you move forward with your businesses and how can we help you to do that. So that's what today's all about. This is the first of a four-part series that we're starting through the end of the year. It's called Entrepreneurs and Family Businesses Prevailing in Uncertain Times. So you've got the LA chapter, the Orange County chapter, and the San Diego chapters of Exit Planning Institute. So welcome and thank you very much for attending. I'm going to turn it over. We've got a great group of advisors assembled here today to talk to you about pivoting and or creating new revenue streams. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to introduce everyone and going to tell you some more about it. So Joe, and let me just introduce you to my great partner, Joe Strazzeri with Strazzeri Mancini. He's with the Founders Group. He's with Southern California Institute. I'm not sure that there's anything that he doesn't do. So Joe, all yours.
So I'm going to back up and embarrass Melissa for a minute. I remember for years, I was lucky enough to meet Melissa. She started when she was 12 years old. So when I say that we were starting to do this 15 plus years ago, 20 years ago, it's true. She was just very young when it started. And by the way, I just saw John Groff's name. Good to see you, John, from Sacramento. Melissa and our firm worked together on valuations, mostly back in those days, valuations for ESOPs, valuations for gifting, valuations for buy-sell agreements in a higher net worth family planning. And had a long-term relationship. We met again at an EPI event many years ago, and I was looking for a great way to help business owners make sure that when they sell their business, they didn't end up getting dinged in in their due diligence and losing value. And I realized as a general contractor by trade, because I hammer nails through law school, I realized that I needed a punch list of things to fix before we went to market. What I did not realize was that quality valuation gave me that punch list, because if I was representing the buyer, I would send in my valuation expert to tear apart the company, my accountants to tear apart the financials and find reasons to lower the price. Melissa knew this for a decade and never told me. So she hid this great value for me for years. We finally said, let's work together. For about 6 months, we said, let's exchange referrals and help each other, and then said, you know what, we've got some good friends, we should do this together, and hence the Founders Group. So Melissa, though I'm still mad at you for hiding the fact that a great valuation helps identify the punch list to keep value and to make a company more stable if I'm keeping the family. Still mad at you for that. I love you for the work that we do together.
So sorry. Not trying to hide anything.
Melissa has for a long time headed up the Greater Los Angeles chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. It was with her mentorship that we then launched the Orange County chapter, or relaunched it, because it had been going for a while and kind of floundered. San Diego had the same history that we did that with as well. Now we're, between all three chapters, over 1,000 strong of advisors in the exit planning arena that do this kind of work, whether it be bankers, M&A, financial advisors, accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, valuation experts, etc. So, and consultants. So Melissa, thanks for playing with us and letting me play today. Of the 4 companies, every time we do these presentations, we explain to business owners, be very careful, be very, very careful of the people you're hearing speak. Whether you're reading something on the internet, whether you're listening to a presentation like this or live, remember how they get paid and how they may slant the data, in the worst case, mislead, in the best case, give you clear information, but still not all of it. There's no way to cover every part of the subject. So what isn't being shared completely? So a little bit of our bias, Shelley Lightfoot is the executive director over all of our companies and actually runs the Southern California Institute. The Institute puts on programs like this, 250 a year, 2/3 to the industry, 2/3 to the professionals that help business owners and successful families. Avenue M is a valuation firm. I was just talking about Melissa. Valuations for many things past what I originally knew on buy-sell agreements and on gifting and on ESOPs. Now, even including over these last decade and a half, doing a valuation not just for the sale, but in prepping for the sale or prepping for a transition in order to find out where to shore the company up. Struzari Mancini, for us, the firm that started it all 25 years ago, that works with successful families and business owners. We're best known for resolving messes. We work with integrated tax and estate planning, business planning, and family wealth counseling. And then, of course, Founders Group. We help businesses prep for transition. Prep for transition. Whether that's, do I keep and grow and stabilize it, or do I transition it to my family members, my employees, or a third-party buyer in whole, in other words, give up all my interests, or in part, where I take part of the ride with them. So that's us and what our bent is. Today is part, like we said, of a 4-part series. Within that, it's prevailing and thriving in these times. Many of our business owners have looked over and they're on the gamut. They're either rocking and rolling right now because they're a business that thrives during this pandemic and they were set up ahead. They're rocking and rolling right now because they pivoted, like Kathleen's going to talk about. They pivoted and they focused in on a new line of business or enhancing a line of business, and they kept the other ones until the world comes back. They're in the middle, just keeping above water. They've got PPP money, it ran out, they're keeping above water, they pivoted some, and they're surviving until they're allowed to come back. There's the next set of business owners that are feeding their business on cash to keep it alive, and unfortunately, some that are having to face, how do I shut down? And what does that mean? And is there value or not? So we're supporting all those business owners through our Exit Planning Institute Southern California chapters by these programs, as you can see up there. Kathleen Templey is a wonderful lady that helps advisors interact with their clients, that helps advisors that interact with business owners and successful families, and gets to what I would even call the heart of the highly relevant matters, whether it's her acumen on business or it's her acumen on helping understand why the business is there and what wealth is being generated for her. I will say that Kathleen is going to do a great job because we've seen stuff before, not only her, but pivoting and creating new revenue streams. That whole idea that I said, how do you pivot during this time and create revenue streams? and how you decide that for your business. Jeremy, who's next? Melissa, why don't you introduce Jeremy a bit?
I think Kathleen was.
How about Kathleen?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. So we have two more speakers today, Dr. Jeremy Lurie. Jeremy, why don't you say hi?
Let's come off mute to that. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here.
So what I'll do is share more about his bio just before his presentation after mine. And we've also got Deborah Gens from Senior Vice President, Group Director of Signature Bank. Deborah, if you'd like to say hi. Thank you.
And of course, Jeremy and Deborah. Jeremy is an expert at effective leadership strategies that Kathleen will talk more about. So our first one on pivoting and creating new revenue streams. Then of course, effective leadership strategies. And then Deborah is going to bring us home with choosing your banker. And in my opinion, understanding access to capital. Understanding access to capital. As we've talked about each one of these types of businesses in today's world, not only in our regular world, understanding a great relationship with a banker. I've had the same bank for decades. It's a relationship we developed. They understand our business and they understand us. In today's world, it's even more critical because there's more than just my banker when you understand accessing capital. And do I or do not, and what do I do during this time? Deborah's going to give us a great idea of what the ways to look at it, how to access your banker, but also the other things that a great banker would have you as a business owner looking at. So Kathleen, would you start us out, please?
It would be my honor, Joe. Thank you so very much. Welcome, everyone. I want to remind you, if you have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat function and Shelley will be monitoring those. After each section, we'll be sharing Q&A so that while it's fresh, you'll have an opportunity to ask some of those questions. And with that, I'm very honored to be able to share about pivoting effectively and creating resilience businesses and new revenue streams in the new normal. Again, my name is Kathleen Tepley, and I'm the CEO and founder of Los Angeles Consulting Group. We are an international business development practice which primarily serves family offices, closely held operating businesses, philanthropic foundations, and differentiated service providers in the private capital markets. I'm also a leadership member, team member for the LA chapter of EPI and also the Conejo Valley EPI chapter. So I'm proud to be here today. So turning into what we're focusing on today, as the world shifts to the new normal, old ways of doing things clearly will no longer work. The recent economic disruption should not spell the end of all businesses. Rather, it should leverage businesses to pivot towards a new reality, working remotely, physical distancing, and consumer introspection and increased technology dependence. So pivoting is a tactic that creates value for clients and businesses. It is not a new concept. Many successful businesses have had to change course halfway before they become successful. Here are a few on the slide that mention some of them. Companies pivot because their original business models did not work. One example of this is Odeo. If you haven't heard of that company, it is a service platform where people can find podcasts. They were doomed once iTunes launched. They commercialized one of the tools they developed for internal communication, and it became what we now know today as Twitter. Another reason why companies pivot is when they want to seize an opportunity. One legendary example is Starbucks. The company began selling espresso makers and coffee beans, but they saw an opportunity to tap another market. Howard Schultz, the CEO, decided to transform the business and started selling coffee. Now we can find Starbucks literally everywhere. So, however, in the current situation, there are a sense of urgency to pivot. Business must shift for survival, to stay afloat and create resilient models that are conducive for continuous growth. It is an undeniably stressful process, but is one that comes with innovation and growth. And here are some examples. JP Morgan Chase & Company, the biggest US bank, have told their employees to work worldwide, work from home on a rotating schedule. So if you try to reach them and you can't reach them, You have to leave a message and they'll call you back. Another one, Capital One. A financial company best known for its credit card services has allowed its employees to work from home for the rest of 2020. Capital One committed to operating digitally, so it touched base with major providers such as Zoom and Google about their ability to scale for a sudden move from office workers to home environments. Okay, slide 3. Shelley. Here are 8 steps to pivot effectively. Number 1, devise an effective framework. Entrepreneurship is hard. Therefore, entrepreneurs should be able to innovate and embrace change. Align the new platforms you'll be using to achieve your goals for business continuity and growth. Devising a working framework for decision-making is necessary. Operational teams must establish with clear goals and a reporting line to keep everyone on the same course. Number 2, lead effectively remotely. That is such a must embrace tactic. Promoting an outcome-oriented culture that empowers and encourages open and productive communication is the new challenge that every business leader must overcome. Number 3, install a compassionate culture. Businesses should offer ways to connect and maintain the sense of community that existed prior to isolation. Devoid of physical connection, social interactions is virtually shared spaces can provide psychological safety for team members and your clients. For example, virtual cocktails, online game nights, virtual dinners or wine events, or presentations such as today's with our EPI community. Number 4, promote inclusivity. Apart from looping team members in the decision making, there's another way to be inclusive is to make sure that the goals resonate with each team member and the goals of your clients. By making them understand how their responsibility contributes to the goals of the company, they are more likely to perform better and your clients will act better working with you as a partner. Number 5, modify ways of connecting with your team and with your clients. One-on-one calls can be used to catch up with team members, and clients are working through sensitive and difficult tasks. As we all know now, video conferences are best for client presentation and engagements. By this, you can meet the client and present as if you are physically in a meeting. It allows you to explain clearly to the client your services by sharing your screen. Number 6, maximize the power of technology. When working remotely to support your team and your clients, teams need platforms to keep everybody aligned. In these platforms, they must be able to co-create, share documents, and manage processes securely. Several different ones would include scheduling apps such as Outlook Calendar, Google Calendar, Calendly, communication platforms such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Skype Business. Cloud-based storage is Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive. Instant messaging platforms such as WhatsApp, Slack, or Skype. And then project and client relationship management such as Monday.com, HubSpot, and Asana. Number 7, data privacy and information security. When working remote, it increases the dependence to technology and raises security concerns. Clients and team members should be aware of how important data privacy is in your company. Self-security concerns by establishing a culture of confidentiality and mandating data privacy and protection trainings and protocols. Number 8, monitor your pivot tactic. This is one of the most important pivot strategies. When monitoring your company performs during a pivot is essential, especially when the market is volatile. For any pivot to work, it must be measurable. When transitioning into the standard work from home setup, determine the metrics that is a basis for productivity. Compare the numbers before and after the transition. Shelley, slide 4. Create new revenue streams. Now, this is probably one of the most important strategies after the pivot, is many of us have to redetermine where our revenue streams are going to be. So let's discuss the key components. Number one, assess your funnels. Remote working provides the perfect opportunity for businesses to evaluate the current practice. Repurpose what you already have and what you already know to create new revenue streams. Find out what is working and build on that. Identify whether there is a need to streamline and automate processes to increase productivity and reduce overhead costs. Assess your current processes and identify areas where efficiency and effectiveness can be increased. Adopt solutions that let you distribute your services online. Number two, find ways to add value. The quickest way to generate revenue is to utilize your current customer base and develop ways to add value. Again, it goes back to building on what you already have. All businesses have core competencies, products or services that you excel in. Focus on these and expand on them. I'm going to repeat that. Focus on them and expand on them. That's how you will make this successful. There are many ways to add value to products and services. Adding value can be as easy as offering good customer service. Give out relevant information through blogs and newsletters and having add-ons on existing offerings. Number three, diversify your offerings. Purposefully expand your products or your services or your compensation offerings for your clients. One approach is to convert your services into programs or products or vice versa. This will boost the value of what you offer and create new ways for you to charge for what you bring to the table. Number four, increase your online visibility. Create public business profiles. Utilize platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter for networking and for value adding. Create or revisit your website. If you don't have a website, reconsider having one. If you have one, revisit what it looks like. Are you speaking to your audience, especially those where we're all virtually working? Websites used to be credibility cards. With the whole world going into isolation, it is now where most of the engagements happen. Number five, join targeted virtual networking events. Do business networking through virtual setups, webinars, or conferences. Many people say that networking by joining webinars almost every day, but they are still not gaining traction. Networking doesn't start or stop just by joining these events. What's your strategy after the event? Again, what is your strategy after all of these events? Take advantage of the opportunities presented with these webinars and do your follow-up and follow-through with people you meet. Schedule a get-to-know call, find ways of leveraging your business with the new contacts, connect them to your community, and be the give-to-giver. And last but not least, number six, track your leads and add them to your network to cultivate partnerships. Monitor your business relationships now that you have new leads. Do not let them get cold. Build your community, find strategic partners that could help you position your business further. Thank you. Next. Shelley, next slide. So next we have Dr. Jeremy Lurie, who will be speaking on effective leadership strategies. And I am proud to introduce Dr. Lurie. Dr. Lurie is a talented executive coach and business psychologist who helps his clients improve performance and produce better business results. With 25 years of progressive experience as a management consultant, he is a trusted business advisor for his supported clients ranging from successful family businesses to mid-market companies to Fortune 500 corporations. Jeremy?
Thanks, Kathleen. Hi, everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces in our EPI community. Look forward to connecting with those of you I don't know, specifically from Orange County and San Diego. I live up in the Los Angeles area, so I'm more connected in with that group. As Kathleen said, I'm an executive coach. I work with business leaders and business owners to help them create greater value in their business and then also grow ultimately so that they can exit. Oftentimes we're working with family businesses, so that exit is actually a generational transition from a parent generation to next gens, to the children who are taking over. And because of that, we also have the division Family Legacy First. We spend a lot of time in the families, focusing on family governance, leading family retreats and such. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share a few slides with you today around leadership and specifically talking about resilience, building on what Kathleen just shared with us around reinvention and how to pivot and generate new revenue streams. If you could move on to the next one, Shelley, thanks. So before we get to really focusing on growth and potentially generating new revenue streams, I think it's important to just pause and reflect on what does it mean to be resilient and think about how many of us are getting wrapped up in what the last 6 months has been. These COVID conditions have many of us stressed out and worried. We're not comfortable working from home. We're used to going into an office where we have great camaraderie with folks and a good positive culture. That's disappeared. We used to go play basketball or walk our dogs at the beach or whatever it was. That a lot of our sort of normal activities have disappeared. And I'm not even talking about the business yet. As a coach and a facilitator, I regularly travel the country supporting families and their businesses all over the place. Well, March through July, that disappeared. And so I had to figure out how I pivoted. And I got stressed, like many of you did, I'm sure. But I would offer these distinctions between past, present, and future. What are you really worried about? If you're worried about covering payroll this Friday, that's a real problem. And we can talk about what's going on in your present that creates that. But for those of us who are worried about if our PPP loans will be forgiven, I don't know what bank you're at. We're going to hear in just a bit how to work with the right bank to is actually processing those loan applications and forgiveness applications. But for my big bank, I'm at least weeks, if maybe even not months away. So worrying about PPP loan forgiveness is something that's happening in the future, and it has no relevance on what happens to me today. A lot of what happened in the past, right? You lost your major client, or potentially some things disappeared. It's in the past. You can learn from it, but to dwell on that today really is just not useful. In fact, it's damaging and drains all of your energy that could be put into more positive directions. And so I would offer, if you're feeling stuck, if you're getting stressed out and worried about something, come back to being present. How do you do that? Lots of strategies here and personal actions that you can take to be present. First off, get up. Don't send one more email. Don't look at one more email. Bearing into that is not going to be the most productive use of your energy. Get up, move. Go walk around the block, go walk around the house, go get a new glass of water. If you're a caffeine drinker, okay, a soda or a coffee. But really do something to break the routine. I think structure is really useful for all of us who've now become virtual leaders and are working remotely. So most of my days, more often than not, I wake up 6:15. I do 15 to 20 minutes of yoga and stretching and push-ups and sit-ups, and that's how I get my blood flowing. That's how I get my day started, almost every day. What do you do to be present to sort of maximize your energy? Maybe it's your music that you listen to, and whether it's heavy rock that's going to get you excited, or if it's cool jazz or whatever, really find those strategies that help you be present. Take ownership for who you're being. And the last word I'll leave with you on this slide is about grit. Grit is about living your passion and being persistent to achieve your own goals. So really think about why you do this work, okay? Moving forward, if you're going to pivot, if you think there's some opportunities out there, I would share the metaphor of the lighthouse. I grew up by the water. I love the water. It's just sort of always become my metaphor for leadership. If you don't know where you're going, you're far less likely to get there. The lighthouse is a very friendly form of feedback to tell us where we're going. And so focus on your core competencies. What do you do well? whether you're a CPA or an attorney, whether your client is a manufacturer or distributor, what is your core? And then build on that by looking at key aspects of your value chain and what you deliver for your customers. Whether it's products or services, doesn't really matter. But if you look at the bottom right graphic here, this is a snapshot from Chip Conley's book, Peak. And it really speaks to the service value chain and how you can connect to your customers and key clients, how you can create a really powerful employee experience that's engaging because it's your employees, your team members who actually do the work that your clients experience. And then ultimately the owners, the investors, and how do they benefit from this. And so way to think about this. I have clients that are in essential businesses, in warehousing, third-party logistics. At the beginning of these COVID conditions where they had to start looking at their business, it wasn't about inventing something new. It wasn't about revenue generation with a new offering. It was about optimizing their current business because they had to minimize paper handoffs and touch. They had to physically distance. So for example, under reinvention, I would offer, I have clients who've implemented GPS software. They no longer use keypads to clock in and clock out. Their team members, once they're on property within 100 yards or something of that typical kind of system that they would have had to clock in or swipe a card, from their phones in a touchless environment, they can now clock in and clock out. So that's reinvention, that's process optimization, we would call it. New revenue streams would be, think about all of the distilleries out there who are no longer selling as much alcohol as they used to because we're not able to go to bars, at least in California. People are not consuming the same kinds of alcohol. They pivoted and started making hand sanitizer. Completely new revenue stream, a new opportunity because they already had the distilling process down. They already dealt with those kinds of materials, but they needed a new customer base to serve because their primary products weren't being used in the same way. So just a couple of different examples. Think about your customers, how you can connect with them and serve them now, and what maybe their unrecognized needs might be for the future. Think about your employees and how you can empower them and support them, engage them in your work. And then ultimately, for those of you who are business owners, we want to be thinking about the value that we're creating and how to create sort of a lasting relationship with our businesses. Okay. Shelley, next slide. As we're doing that, as we're looking at our strategic goals and we're setting our direction for the future, it's really important to pay attention to both leading and lagging indicators. Are we achieving the goals that we want? Easy way of looking at a leading indicator. For example, if I have a sales target of $1 million, how many prospecting phone calls do I make to talk to prospective customers? As Kathleen was mentioning, maybe how many posts am I making on LinkedIn or Twitter? How many talks am I giving each week or each month? Those are leading indicators. They don't necessarily guarantee I'm going to achieve my goal or that I'm going to win the game, but they're good indicators to suggest I'll be successful. Lagging indicators are things like your P&L. I'm not saying don't look at your lagging indicators. I'm saying that you can't do anything about it once you close the books each month. It is a lagging indicator to tell you if you were on track. And so as you start thinking about the future, really look at your goals in a specific and measurable way and start putting a time frame towards them. If we want to generate new revenues, we want to make sure that we put a time frame. How many new customers do we need to have in the next month or 6? What kind of revenues do we want to create in the next month or 6? Right? To get really specific, we call these SMART goals. And as you're using your SMART goals, make sure that you're keeping score. We all are competitive in one way or another. And if we are winning the game, we'll play differently. If we're losing the game, we'll play differently. So make sure that you have a scoreboard for tracking your goals. Are you on the right track of winning the game or not? This is a soccer metaphor here. During a soccer match, for those of you who play, you don't just look at the score at the end of the game. You look at corner kicks, you look at shots on goals, you look at possession time. There are a lot of metrics that you're going to look at as your leading indicators to make sure that you're winning the game. So make sure as you are looking at these new market opportunities, you're doing your customer segmentation. You're tracking your progress to see if you are moving towards achieving that goal. All right, next slide, Shelley. And then as you're doing this, we really want to drive accountability. And how do we drive accountability? We talk to people, we communicate. So as we are tracking our score on the scoreboard, we have team meetings and huddles to share with people updates. We're going to be moving out of the office and working from home. We're going to be coming back from a work from home environment to working in the office again. Or, hey, we're now pivoting to start making hand sanitizer instead of alcohol. Here are some of the things you need to know about your job, or pull people together into those brainstorming meetings so that they can actually be empowered and be inspired and get on board with what you're trying to accomplish. One-on-ones are a great way of giving performance feedback. So you might have some business leaders who are feeling a little stressed or anxious about working remotely. Talk to them individually, give them the positive feedback that they need to be successful. Where you have team members who are struggling, we don't want to give them, constructive performance feedback in a large group. We want to do that in these individual, more intimate settings to help get them back on track. And a couple of just key tools at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see stop, start, continue. And I always reorient that to be continue, start, stop. Plus delta. These are both just simple tools that help you give feedback to your team members. So on the continue, start, stop side, 3 simple questions. And you can ask this of yourself individually as leaders. You can ask this of your team members in a way of sharing feedback. So just using this for myself. What do I want to continue doing that's already producing positive results? Now that I have that strong foundation, what do I want to start doing to produce even better results? What should I stop doing immediately because it's not producing our intended results or maybe has some unintended consequences? There's no harm or foul in any of this. It's just a simple way of thinking through very critically and objectively, what are we doing well and what can we improve? And that gets me the plus delta. Plus for positive, what are we doing well that we want to continue doing? Delta for change, where can we improve and what are we going to do differently moving forward? Okay, so just be thinking about these simple tools. You want people to have clear roles and responsibilities and have clear performance expectations, of course. We want to appreciate and recognize performance. Some people like to be recognized by saying thank you, good job. Some people like to be recognized with a small token of appreciation. Some people like to be appreciated just by spending quality time with you and helping develop their skills. And so think about how to connect with your team members. And I sort of liken it to making deposits in people's emotional piggy banks. As we are about to segue into banking here in a moment, we all are going to make withdrawals over time, especially in these very stressful times. And so really try to contribute to people's lives as best you can and make those deposits. Now more than ever, I would offer, leadership matters. And I'll share with you in a moment how important leadership really is. But your leadership style comes from 2 places. It's what you bring to the table, your pedigree, your background in education, your work experience in the past, your upbringing, your integrity and work ethic, all that stuff of who you are, and then also the job. If you have strong job fit, then you likely are going to have a more positive leadership style. But imagine if I have absolutely no finance acumen and you were to make me CFO of your company. It's just not a good fit. So you're going to get a very stressed, kind of pressured leader. Where you have good fit, your leadership then impacts the climate that people experience around you. And that has a direct tie to performance. Now, if we had more time, I'd get into the specifics, but I'll just share with you, your leadership style has about a 75% impact on the climate people experience. Okay, Shelley, go ahead and advance for more time. Now, I've talked about organizational climate for years. I heard a speaker once frame it differently. We as leaders, we make the weather that our team members experience. And you have a choice right now in these conditions that we are facing, work from home, return to work, depressed markets, trying to find new opportunities to pivot. You have a choice on what kind of weather you're going to make. For those of us who reside in Southern California, we likely prefer blue skies and sunshine. If you can manage your stress by being present, if you can start looking more positively at the future opportunities that now exist and start to pivot, you can shy away from the dark clouds and thunderstorms that most people don't like. So thank you for letting me share some of that with you today. I'm happy to take a couple questions if we have them now, or maybe we move on to our next talk. Kathleen?
Joe and Shelley, do you guys have any comments? I missed Joe's voice.
What is on the chat function? Anything we need to talk about?
They've already been answered on the chat function.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So, Jeremy, help me just a little bit.
Yeah.
With what you go and do you work with the owner? Do you work with the leadership? Do you work with a team? Is the answer yes to all 3?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yes. So most of my clients start with the business owner saying, I'm trying to grow my company and it feels like we're sort of stagnant. We're not achieving that growth goal. Or it's that business owner saying, hey, I have a vice president, sort of a right-hand trusted leader who needs some coaching. So it's usually that executive office where I'm going to start. But then I happen to be in Minnesota this week with one of my family business clients. I'm helping the president, who's fourth gen family business leader. He has a brand new management team in place. And so we're trying to help them set goals very much in line with the Lighthouse and get them all aligned on what their roles and responsibilities are, operations, finance, sales, and such. So we do work with an entire organization, but my focus as a coach is primarily with the business owner and the CEO.
And I realize it sounds silly, but I'm a business owner. I've got myself, we showed earlier, I've got 4 brands. And there are people that run each one, and some are doing well and some are not. And I'm an entrepreneur, and therefore I've got to be larger than life. And the pandemic, I was built for pandemic. Pandemic, the world's coming to an end. I suit up and I quietly say, thank God, I go get to be the savior. And I go research and do, and I throw money at things, and I throw motivation. I work ungodly hours, and I tell everybody we're going left because left is the right answer, whether I know it or not. That's just me, right? So I'm that entrepreneur. How do I know that I need you? Because I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. Shelly's saying, yep, got it. You're saying left, I'm going to go left, we're going to implement. How do I realize I need you for Steve, my partner, or for Sal, my son, or quietly for me? Because nobody's allowed to know that I'm confused.
Yeah, it's a great point. And by the way, I'm very much like you. I like challenges. I like stress because it's when I feel like I can do my best work, and I push through it. Right.
Well,
so there are 2 sort of critical pieces there. One, if you really want to grow faster, right? For those of us who are in an exit planning mode with our clients or even within our own businesses that we own, if you want to get there faster, you likely need a coach to help get people aligned to move quicker. We talk about 90-day sprints within exit planning methodology. It's important to get people focused on micro goals to achieve the macro goal. But the other piece of that, Joe, I would say, well, Shelly may know you and work well with you. The rest of your team members, you might see the deer in the headlights from them. You might see the stress and the anxiety and the sweat when you start saying, today go left, tomorrow go right, next week jump. And so it's the reaction from others that tends to be a really good trigger. Yeah, and I've had those clients all the time. I was speaking to one earlier, CEO they're supposed to be in maintain stability mode because they did a lot of growth last year. Well, he's looking at a new deal already. And this is after the last 6 months of shutdown. He's already basically 1 month into his new year, looking at a new deal, saying, I've got to do it, right? Because some people are just wired to continue to grow, but his team is not ready. And so someone like me can help.
Our strongest owners, our strongest family business owners, are looking at increasing market share in 2021. It's whatever they're doing now, they're going to be radically profitable, they're going to break even, they're going to feed money, but they know they're going to grow market share in 2021. Yep. What they're doing now, it would be nice to radically make money, it'd be okay to break even, it sucks to feed it money, but we're going to get more market share. Kathleen, you talked about a lot of things about pivoting and about looking, and there were great lists, but that's a lot for me as a business owner to think about. When do I have time to do that, and how do I get help thinking about it? Because I'm not Apple, and I don't have the product of Zoom. I got my business that I've done for years, and we're here, and I got people that I love that I might have to lay off. How do I make those decisions with you?
So when I sit down with clients, I typically say, let's discuss your pain points. What's working? What's not working? Where do you see the transition has affected? We look at those and we start focusing on building on success. I think for me, for clients, and many times it's just getting on a phone with an entrepreneur and saying, I'm stuck. Here are some of the things I'm seeing, and here are some of my concerns, and talking them through it. Sometimes it's just having that conversation, Joe, like you do several times with a lot of your colleagues, is just listening and focusing on what the current strategies are, and maybe doing a little bit of a shift on what's working and taking away those that are not working.
So I think we're on timing. We need to get to banking.
Yeah, right.
I know that for me, I I cherish my banking relationship. And my banking relationship is lovely when I'm doing really well, and that's important to me. But you know, there have been the first scolding I ever got was from my dad's banker. I was in Solana Beach here, which is here in San Diego, off of Loma Santa Fe, which was then Glendale Federal Bank. Then it became CalFed and now Citibank. And Rose Bay sat me down and said, Joe, I've known you since you were a kid. The way you're running your credit, the way you're running your business, the way you're running your checking is not good, and here's why. And it was a wake-up call for me. But that was also the person that helped me understand as a young man how to work with a banker, what that meant, and how to develop reputation, how to develop credit, but also how to build my business. But I remember at a time having to think, what do I do during desperate times when things were more difficult? And from that, I got to predict before difficulty in the future what I should be doing. My banker was the sage, wise one that I got to run ideas by, kind of with my head down on, can we go in the room where nobody can hear us? So tell me about Deborah a little bit.
So I'm looking forward to hearing Deborah talk about choosing your banker and accessing capital. I think one of the biggest things in the pivot is to reevaluate where you're at financially and what you need to do to be able to get through the next 6 months, maybe 12 months. So Deborah is a senior vice president, group director at Signature Bank, and works with middle market firms in achieving goals by structuring customized credit solutions, including commercialized or commercial loans and lines of credit, real estate financing, and asset-based lines of credit. And with that, Deborah, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you again for letting me speak here. I'm honored. A little bit on Signature Bank. Signature Bank is a New York-based bank on the NASDAQ SPNY that makes it easy with businesses and business owners. There's no retail, and it's aggressively has come to Southern California, all of California this year, and our big difference is that it's almost like a private client bank approach to banking. Every business has its one person who's your point of contact and brings more of that platform to businesses in Southern California. So from the earlier speakers, I think it's pretty clear that banking it has been a difficult time period, and a lot of people have probably had some not so fun interactions with their bankers. So as it says, it is an important decision. I think it's even become even clearer how important that decision is these past few months. So can I have the next slide? Thank you. So I thought about it as if I'm a business owner, an entrepreneur, engaging on the next step, what qualities would I want in a banker? And I summarized a few of these that really differentiate a banker from a true banker. Number one is, do they understand you, your business, your industry, and its challenges? And also, I would want the banker to take time to understand me, what makes me tick for my businesses, and what's my risk tolerance. Particularly financial planning, they need to know what I'm going to tolerate. They take a deep dive into your business plans for today and going forward and understands the drivers of that plan and the bank's financing impacts on those drivers. They're able to see the big picture while developing flexible financial strategies, meeting the needs. I like to call this the Muhammad Ali concept. I'm a big sports fan, you'll find out. So you remember his float like a butterfly, sting like a bee? That's what your financial plan has to be. It's got to be flexible to survive times like we've been through, but also have a punch when you have the opportunity to increase sales or need to go through a seasonal challenge. This is the key one for me. There are a lot of bankers, but you've got to find a banker that's knowledgeable, experienced, and has a proven track record so they can replicate that success with you. And you need the Phil Jackson or the Pete Carroll of bankers, somebody, and you can get a reference, somebody who's done this before. They become your guide through this whole process. They have to be forward thinking and innovating. But not just with banking. I look for somebody who takes a global view. A banker who just knows finance, not that great. A banker who will look at other options, know what's going on in the insurance, the property casualty, or the tax arena that could add to the whole picture. They could even find ways to mitigate risk. Reduce cost is a gem of a banker to find. So they take a more of a macro look. I think they're being willing to collaborate with other advisors for the good of the business. And that's particularly important while you're processing or going through the loan application process. You never want to surprise the tax accountant or the attorney. They need to be there as you're negotiating this, so all factors are taken into consideration. What happens with this loan proposal to those areas. And I think, as we've discussed earlier, this is the key point that we've learned these days. The banker should be able to face adversity with positivity and support the business through challenging times. You don't know how many times I got calls from customers that they were about to go over the edge. And if the banker runs like a chicken with his head cut off to credit and it doesn't bring some tranquility, that's not a good banker. The banker should almost be your Dr. Phil, to be honest, where they will sit there and say, okay, I know you. I know how you deal with these crises. Let's sit down. What's going on? Let's see what's resolution and how the bank can help in this resolution to even make you stronger when you're done with this. And most importantly, they have to be your advocate. They need to go out and fight for you with bank, with the credit, and make sure that they're taking your side. So I think that's something that has become really clear during this period. And as you're transitioning, that's got to be the case. You have to ask yourself about this. You've got the banker, but it's not just the banker. There has to be an institution behind it. So you could have the Tom Brady of bankers, all-star, but with another team, you might not get the same result. A Tom Brady with the New England Patriots might not be Tom Brady with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just saying. So you really need to understand the bank that he's in or he or she is working with. Is the bank's client service the top priority? Do you just call one person, or are you calling 30 people? Are you going to 1-800 numbers? Does the banker pick up your call after hours, on weekends, or at all? Service, particularly as you're going to the next level or to a different stage of financing, that's key. Does the bank display financial stability and have a solid reputation? Can they grow with you? Do they have the ability to grow to a different level of complexity? And are they financially solid? Ask for financials as you're going through this process. This is key. Does the bank have other clients in my industry, and is it important to me? In part, do the credit people understand the dynamics and idiosyncrasies of your business industry? If they don't, you might have problems going through that credit process. Or even so, some banks, there are certain industries that some banks don't want to pursue, and it could just be a historical or an appetite issue. For example, some banks don't want to work with contractors because of progress billings, or the adult entertainment industry, or apparel. If you know, if your banker tells you we don't do much in that area, why go through the process? Move on and find a bank that does understand your industry. This is very key in these days. Does this bank have a local and efficient borrowing credit process? What role does your banker have in this? Does your banker have a say in the credit process, the credit structure? How much of a pen is there locally? Do you have to wait for 3 other cities or other legal credit authorities to approve this? Ask for an ETA, ask for the steps. You need to know when this is going to be completed. And also something that I'm seeing these days, that it's my hint, is when you receive a proposal or a term sheet, I would ask, has credit looked at this? What I'm seeing quite often these days is that I'll be working on a deal and the client will say, you know, I got this great proposal. It offers me the sun, the moon, and world peace. And there's no covenants, there's all the money in the world. And then they come back 2 months later and the end product is not at all like the initial product. So as you're talking to your bankers and as they bring you a proposal, has it been approved? Has it even been looked at by credit? Does the banker offer all the products and services that I need to support my business? Credit is one piece. Credit is a fun piece, but you need to look at the technology of the bank and also the other services. It doesn't behoove a company to have many different banking relationships. It could cause issues with fees and security and risk. So make sure the bank has cash management and treasury services or trade services that can add value. And sometimes that could be even the major component. Can it save you money? Can it improve efficiencies? Can it improve the security of your systems? And then the other big key, and I think we're seeing this now, is will the bank support my business long term? We want a partner. It's like a marriage. You want them there for the long term. In banking, we say, does the covenant force the company to regroup, or is it an aha moment? Some banks, the bank that you should be looking at, will take an issue. Everybody's going to go through hiccups. They will take that issue as a time to regroup and maybe restructure or change the ship a little bit, change the structure a bit, as opposed to if you broke a covenant and we're done. So I think the longevity, and that's pretty much a reputational, that's something you can hear in the market from others in the industry as to the reputation of the bank in this. And that's the key. It's ask for references. You could ask for references from other business owners, from your CPA, from your attorneys. The banking industry is somewhat small in that case. So take a few references and that will hit a lot of those prior points. And next slide. So you got your banker, you got your bank, now you're ready to apply. And these are some of the key points as you're accessing capital that I think are important. And particularly these days of COVID, when you're going into a more complex and larger credit facilities, I think it's really key to make sure that your financials are in order and look at the quality of the reporting. As you're getting into larger credits, you might need to have reviewed statements from a quality financial firm, CPA firm, or audited statements. And also the projections. Get credible projections that have parameters that the banker can understand and can work with. The more information and more transparency there is, quality information, the easier it is to really bring that to credit and to obtain the premier financial package. As you're looking at this, there's a few parameters that banks overall look at when you're starting. It's your collateral, it's your cash flow, it's your EBITDA, your profitability, and your balance sheet strength. And as you're working with a banker, it's a journey. And keep a watch on these different parameters. And that's the basis of really structuring the credit. Have a solid business plan with milestones to be met. A banker loves a story. If you've got a story where I see a business owner said, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and they do it, that makes it so much easier because we see that there's success and there's commitment. And that's the key point. It's proved commitment to your business and consistency of management. When I see a business owner who's so committed to the business, it's their baby and they should be committed to them. That is just a great, awesome, it's easier to get your arms around it and feel vested in the company. Also the management, if you've got management that has a track record and is continuing with this track record, it's a perfect sell, and it's something that I think bankers, business people in general like. And look for solutions that are customized. There's no one box. It's not like let's make a deal, take box 1, box 2, box 3. Customize the deal and have the banker give you options. Sometimes I'll have somebody come to me and say, I need a line of credit. Well, that's not what they need. It depends on your projections and what you're doing now. It's future looking. So you have a bunch of tools. You could do working capital lines, term debt, equipment leasing, trade finance. There's so many ways to skin a cat, and a good banker should give you a plethora of alternatives. And that's it. So, but if in banking, financial loan, that's usually the most flexible and economic version of financing. But if you're not able to reach that level right now, next slide, please. There are other non-bank alternatives other than equity that are possible. You could go to a factoring company, a finance company, leasing companies, real estate-based lending, credit cards, and private lending. These are usually more expensive options, but a lot of times the bankers will use this as a bridge until possibly a more conforming bank alternative is available. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't see any questions at the moment.
I was saying earlier, Deborah, a banking relationship is magical for our clients that treat their bank as an electronic institution, and maybe they have $100,000 or $500,000 line or loan, and that was the extent of their relationship. And now that they're in trouble, they just don't have that relationship, or they didn't realize what they were signing when they did.
Mhm.
They didn't have a banker who gave them options, as you said. They had somebody who was very new in the business and entered a big bank. They got them to sign a thing and they didn't realize what it was.
Yeah.
During a downturn, I can still remember Sam, one of my good friends, Jeff's client, who explained to me that he was fine. They had done all these things. He owned a lot of real estate. He was leveraging higher than he had before. He explained with Bank of X, he had this great relationship. They'll never hurt him. And then we had a downturn. A couple of big tenants got out. And then this great relationship we had that used to go to great games with or football games wasn't taking calls, and then was, we need this information or the end of the world. And I didn't blame the banker. The banker was in a position where they might lose their job if they didn't do these other things. Well, it was a banker that just didn't have history.
Right.
It hadn't taken people through downturns. So when you're looking for your banker, in my opinion, you're going to look for somebody who's been in the banker at the bank. Two very different things. The banker at the bank, a banker that's been around a long time, that has a good relationship with many different business owners. And then the bank that they've chosen to work at that has the capacity to do the things that are needed. When you're interviewing the other business owners that banked with that banker at that bank for a while, with that banker, talk about the rough times.
Right.
How did they help you think through things? Now we're talking a banker.
Exactly. Exactly. And you hit it right on the nose. And it's in finding the banker who's gone through these ups and downs. I mean, when you have a banker who's had a customer 30 years or 20 years, or a bank that says it all. Because during a 30-year time period, I will guarantee you they've gone through more than their fair share of glitches. And it's just, and in fact, right now, I've got customers that I helped before the pandemic, right when it was starting, who are already in a better position than they were at the beginning of the year, because they worked with us to really structure financial plans that got them through this and allowed them to even excel on the sales side, depending on the industry.
Joe, Melissa has a question.
Hey, Mel.
Hi, so I have a question. This is for each of you. Can you each talk to us about what are the biggest issues right now that your clients are facing as they're thinking about, do they pivot, or what do they do right now to grow their revenues? Can you guys each give us an example of what your clients are thinking about?
Deborah, Jeremy, who wants to start?
Go ahead, Deborah.
So you're asking what my clients are doing to survive and pivot during this time period?
Yeah, what's their biggest issue that they're facing as they're thinking about how do they get through this time period?
Every industry has a different concern. The most interesting ones I've seen are clients that really embraced the e-commerce side of it and expanded on the e-commerce side very quickly. And were able to pivot. It's interesting. They were already working with advisors that helped them pivot and reduce their expenses, not just labor. Labor, obviously, that's a difficult one. And pivot totally to that e-commerce side very quickly. Their biggest concern is, let me see what their biggest concern is. Their biggest concern is maintaining that revenue sale. They're concerned about, they're concerned what happens if we go to another slowdown. So what are they doing? They're also looking internationally. They're trying to find other uses for their products, other channels. So I think that's the finance side. They're okay. We've already set them, but it's more the top line growth and finding alternatives for the products.
And Melissa, I would offer, I have two different kinds of clients this year. One is the kind of client who is an essential business, who's managed through this turmoil. PPP, has definitely helped them get through that. And they're now looking at expansion and growth and all of those things that in a typical market they would have, funding or revenue to bring into it, but they just don't. And so they're trying to figure out, do I go to family office money, private equity? I may have already fully leveraged my line with my banks. And so that's one challenge, really, is about capital. But two, which we also unfortunately have many clients where they've really struggled. Revenues are down, they've had to do layoffs, or if they haven't done layoffs, they've moved everyone into work from home, remote environments where there's just no culture and cohesion. And so they're now asking for support on how do I bring my leadership together and get us all focused? At what point do I bring people back to the office? And if I do, how? And so we've got folks who are not just looking at the capital and growth, but they're looking really at people and culture and how to bring their companies through this, what my mother calls an intermission, and trying to leverage themselves for the second act.
Yep. And I think for my clients, what I'm seeing a lot of is embracing the new normal. For many months, they kept saying when we reopen, it's right now positioning. You have to position yourself. You have to look to your client needs. You have to look to your community and your strategic partners and determine what is it that they need and make sure that you're identifying those in your positioning. Many people were in shock for too many months, and we just got so many phone calls that it's sitting down, calming down, listening to what Jeremy says or Deborah says, and just repositioning, just looking at what your clients need and what the community needs, and then adjusting. And just remember, this is the normal now, and it just means what level of normal will be in the future.
Perfect. Okay, well, you can see I have an empty chair next to me now. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Got over a little bit on time, and we appreciate everyone sticking with us. I don't see any final questions. Melissa, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, here's thank you again to our speakers, Kathleen and Jeremy and Deborah. Here's their contact information. I'm sure that they're each more than happy if you want to reach out directly. You can always get to them through us as well. You can reply to one of those several email confirmations and reminders that you received, and we'll be happy to connect you. Don't forget, we have another 3 more coming up on the 29th of September, October 27th, and November 17th. Different sets of experts and different topics for each. So we hope you will continue to join us, and we'll get better at staying on time.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you to our speakers.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.